Thank you so much, Herman, and congratulations to this great team of young and innovative companies, and my regards to Jillian, to Janos and Valerie, and also to Amondi for sharing their experiences. It's great to see that we have so many local companies engaging and finding solutions for electrifying transport on the African continent, and also that they respond to the actual user needs to locally create value. Also, it was very encouraging to see that we have this big potential to shift to 2- and 3-wheelers that are actually a great way to create better access at a more affordable cost for a larger group of users. So I think we can say we have started this transition on electric mobility in Africa already, but certainly we heard that there's still some obstacles that we would have to overcome and that we need some facilitators and support mechanisms that can drive and support further rollout of electric mobility solutions on the African continent. And with this, I would like to announce our next special feature, which is actually going to be the introduction of UNEP's Africa Support and Investment Platform to electric mobility. And we will hear in about a minute from Annika how this platform can support countries on their trajectory to electric mobility. But let me remind you first again of making use of the chat. Please fill in your questions, the questions you want to ask to Annika, and also be prepared to making use of the networking room. As Annika, I think you will be with us later and join the networking room to directly exchange with our interested audience here. So welcome, Annika. And we are so happy to have you in this next feature. And I would like to hand over to you. Floor is yours.
Hi. Thanks a lot, Stephanie, for having me. Very excited to join the Africa Day here from our office of UNEP in Nairobi in Kenya. And I would like to share with you about our Global Electric Mobility Program, which I'm leading the work in Africa. And I prepared a few slides that I think you'll pull up at this point. Or can the audience see them already? Sorry. I can't hear anyone right now.
To be ready. Annika, we're putting up your presentation. Please be patient for 5 seconds more, and we'll be ready soon. Thank you. Annika, we have your slides ready. You can see them?
Yeah. Good.
So please go ahead.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. So yeah, let's start then, please. So yeah, as again I said, UNEP has developed a global electric mobility program. And in the next few slides, I just want to give you first the brief overview of the global program and then diving into the Africa projects. So the program supports over 50 low and middle income countries all around the globe. We have raised 80 million grants and loans, and it's funded mostly by the Global Environmental Facility, the German Climate Initiative ICI, the European Commission, and other foundations. And we implement it jointly with different partners in different regions. For example, the International Energy Agency and the Asian Development Bank and other UN agencies. And the program has 5 main components, as you see below. We try to build capacity on e-mobility, create awareness, do roadmaps, develop national policy programs, business and finance, and trainings. And on the next slide, there you can see the main pillars. So for Africa, mostly already, they're technical and mature, and they're also easier for local assembly. And we see very high growth rates in many East African markets. And the other main area is electric buses, where we are actually working with some local startups who are trying to, on one way, retrofit minibuses, but also who are customizing Chinese electric buses up to 30 seaters for the African market. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is just an overview of how the program is set up. So as I mentioned before, there's regional platforms, and the one that's led by us, UNEP, is the regional platform for Africa, which I want to talk about in a moment. And then we also have global thematic working groups. We're trying to develop materials that can be used across regions, and then later customize them for the local context. And there's a working group on charging infrastructure and batteries, light-duty vehicles, buses, and electric 2- and 3-wheelers. And this is what the main outcomes of these working groups are. So the idea is to have a community of practice where experts from different regions can network, exchange on experience. For example, in developing a 2-wheeler pilot, in Bangkok versus one in Nairobi, we try to advise and very important to the tools and knowledge products that are globally available. And that can also support then pilots in specific countries. And 2 of the working groups are led by the International Energy Agency, and 2 by UNEP, which is 2- and 3-wheelers and heavy-duty vehicles. And now the focus is on the regional support investment platform. And these platforms have 4 main functions. One is to provide technical support to the country projects. So I mentioned before, we have in total 50 countries. And the idea is this platform is support the countries in the implementation of the e-mobility projects. Nairobi, where people that work on e-mobility can reach out to us, for example, ask for advice, ask for experts on battery recycling, or someone who has done a pilot on 3-wheelers with solar charging, and we will then try our best to connect the people with the right knowledge resources or experts. We are also supporting the creation of community of practices among different actors in the space in Africa, and we are working now to establish marketplaces where actually manufacturers and EV supply equipment providers, together with financiers and projects, can come together and develop project proposals, and also to raise interest of international OEMs that there's actually a market in Africa for these type of vehicles, and we want to try and support the business development in some of the countries. And this platform is open not only to the countries we're already working with, but in general to everybody. So I'll share the contact details later on. So if anyone is interested to develop a new electromobility project, or you have something growing, but you need, I don't know, some training advice, then you can reach out to us and we will try our best to help out. Next slide, please. Yeah, and as I mentioned, this is the map where we have currently ongoing pilot projects. So see, there's so widespread. We have many projects on. So the icon there shows on the pilot. So we usually do a general e-mobility strategy, but then we'll do a pilot in like one specific mode. So for example, in Kenya, we are working on 2-wheelers. In Sierra Leone, it's 3-wheelers. In Cote d'Ivoire, it's BRT together with taxis, so light-duty vehicles. So yeah, this is just to give you an overview of the geographical spread at the moment. Next slide, please. Yeah, and like by developing the projects and talking to others, there's like several barriers that probably previous speakers have already mentioned around e-mobility in Africa that we have identified. And also, first of all, lack of awareness that disease technology or some of these are actually already mature and readily available to be used in certain contexts. That often, though, some of the vehicles are not adapted to the local market. So if, for example, we had a pilot in Kenya where we just imported vehicles from India that were not apt to Chinese road, to African road conditions. For example, in Kenya, we have very high speed bumps. There's more frequency of flooding. The temperatures are different. So those are kind of things that then we would help to adapt the technology to local conditions. There's a lack of targeted financial products. there's not a lot of experience of handling electric vehicles at the moment. Some countries are already advancing a lot on national policy and strategies, others are not. So we're also trying to see how, for example, a country that like Rwanda, who already has like a strong national framework on e-mobility, what of this can be used, for example, in Uganda. Then we're supporting with developing demonstration projects, which are often lacking, and actually the grid stability. So that's why it's also very important to work with local utilities to also expand renewable energy availability. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just the support offer in a few slides. So as I mentioned, we provide the technical assistance to the country projects. Here again, on the left side, you see the country projects with the respective implementing or supporting agency, which is in most cases us at UNEP, but also other UN agencies. These are kind of the main components that all of these projects will address. Like business models, feasibility studies, strategies, access to financing. So really try to cover the whole framework. And now you can move ahead. Thank you. So what I mentioned now that we have these community of practices where we're going to try to set up regional task teams. So one task team, so these task teams are supposed to be connecting experts from all the different projects we showed before, so that they can actually provide feedback on the knowledge products that were developed at the local level and provide local context to these products, and then also later try to improve them. And then also we will organize, for example, if we're working on electric two-wheelers, we would try to organize meetings between providers of electric two-wheelers in, let's say, Kenya, together with Sierra Leone. So there can also be like a regional exchange on products. And the idea is also to aggregate demand for certain vehicles so that it's easier to also get to scale and get affordable prices for some of the vehicles. And then also we would help to develop specifications for the products for the local conditions. And on the next slide, you'll see I just have briefly outlined that we have one task team on electric buses, because many countries in Africa or cities basically are trying to invest more in mass rapid transit. So there's often discussion, is electric BRT an option or not? So we help doing TCO analysis of different options. So we had a project, for example, called Soot-Free Bus Project, where we try to analyze between CNG, electric buses, and clean diesel to see what is the most viable technology. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, on many issues, actually electric mobility on a TCO basis is the most competitive technology for these vehicles. But we'll also look into a minibus fleet, which are not predominant in many countries, such as Kenya. And then the second task team on the next slide is on 2- and 3-wheelers. And here I'm just showing a graph from a study that was done by Persistent Energy, which showed that electric motorcycles are already commercially attractive in at least 15 African markets. And the bubble size represents just the size of the market. So where you see everything, what you see on the top right corner, those are the already commercially attractive markets. And that was based on economic viability for the drivers. So based on energy savings per day. That is then the difference between fuel cost and electricity costs. And on the horizontal axis, you see environmental attractiveness, and this is related to the cleanliness of the grid. So, for example, a country like Kenya, where already almost 90% of the electricity comes from renewable energy sources, of course, there's a higher environmentally attractiveness than, for example, Nigeria, where there's still more fossil fuel based. And next slide, please. And that is some of the training topics that we will be offering throughout the next few years. So these training obviously will, for the beginning, be virtually, and we'll send out invitations to whoever is interested, and they can. Everybody is welcome to attend these sessions. And since I'm running out of time, of course, let's move on to the next. Yeah, and this is just to finish off where you can currently find all the resources that are available globally. So we're trying also to gather tools and materials developed from other agents and trying to put them all on this immobility.tools website, where you can then also find tools, knowledge products, and everything that's developed in the global working groups that I outlined before. Yeah, and I think with this, this is all our partners that we currently work with. And with that, this is the email address that the next one, which I invite you to send me an email if you have requiring further information, you're interested to join us, want to be part of the trainings or the task teams. Yeah, this is the email address. And now over back to the studio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annika, for introducing the platform to us. It's exciting to see how you're gearing up and providing support across the entire continent with so many important partners to making this work. I would like to invite the audience again to post their questions in the chat, and let's make use of Annika as long as she's here. She already announced that she's also open and available to receive your emails, but please also make use of the chat. I will make use of my position here as a moderator and address the first question to Annika now. Annika, we've seen that you're running several pilots in many African countries. And one major, let's say, challenge with those pilots is later on the scale up and the rollout, because the pilot is kind of an artificial environment that we create, but then going beyond and really rolling this out on the ground is a challenge. Can you maybe already point to the learnings you have from these pilots, and what would you recommend that they also can scale up afterwards?
Yeah, no, I think that's the $100 million question, right, Stephanie? Because most, I would say all of the pilots, like none of them has reached scale yet, right? So we are still in almost all the projects, we are still at the pilot scale. And of course, the idea of this platform is actually to provide mechanisms that could facilitate replication and scale up of these things. And there, one mechanism I mentioned was also to aggregate demand. So if we see that a technology that maybe is viable in Nairobi, we could see if it's also viable in Dar es Salaam. Can we then also combine, for example, orders of vehicles, right, to have bigger scale, because then it's better to get better financial conditions. And then the other aspect is what the platform is also trying to do with the marketplace is generate procurement and financing route tables, where we want to get commercial financiers and DFIs, or development finance institutions, together, and also discuss which financing models are could be developed, right, to provide money to get to scale.
Okay, I see one key part is bringing together all those different partners, as you already just mentioned, also the financing and the private partner sector. We have here a question in the chat that is in the same line a little bit. So do you work with national government or also on a city level? And what approach do you use for each of them?
Yeah, very good question. So as UNEP, we mostly work at the national level. So our counterparts in these countries is usually Ministry of Transport and or Ministry of Environment or Finance, or whoever has basically the lead on the topic assigned in the different countries. So that would be our main counterpart for the development of the projects, because they all start by developing a national framework for e-mobility, right? Where we try to look at the energy sector, the mobility sector, and see what needs to be in place. Because in most countries, we see that the power or the authority, even for urban transport, most of these like tax incentives and policies lie at the national level. But then again, later for the pilot, it's mostly an urban topic. But there it also depends a lot, like if we're talking about 2- and 3-wheelers or buses, right? Who has the main authority for this mode of transport, or who is regulating it in that city? So that's where then, of course, city stakeholders come in place. And there's another project that we are cooperating with, which is called EC Solutions Plus, where they actually have already pilots in relationship with the city of Kigali and the city of Dar es Salaam, where for example, like the transport agencies play a critical role in these projects. And the same would be then, if you have a bus, then some of these cities have formed local transport authorities, which would then be the main counterpart for these bus projects.
Thank you, Annika. I think you made it very clear that there's also a vertical link across the different hierarchy levels from the national to the local government, and that both are really important to make this work on the ground. Thank you for being with us, and also thank you for joining now the networking room. We invite the audience now also to join the room and meet Annika there to ask for the questions, and certainly reach out to her to get involved to the UNEP Africa Supported Investment Platform for Electric Mobility. Thank you, Annika. We say goodbye to you here. And I like to go on a short break, which you can make use of networking with Annika now, and we will be back at past with our country spotlight, where you will hear from government representatives on their strategies for transport and climate in the country. I see you. Bye.